to open the public portion of the September 20th, 2023 Richfield Park Board of Education meeting. The time is now 7:36. Let's begin with the salute to the flag. May you please read the Open Public Meetings Act?
Yes, President Martinez. The New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend the meeting of a public bodies at which any business affecting the interest is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of this act, the Richfield Park Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the date, time, place, therefore posted in the Bergen Record, Star Ledger, Municipal Building, Board Offices, and District website. Public participation will be conducted both in person and virtually through Zoom. All public will be muted throughout the meeting. Public participation comments are limited to 5 minutes. The public will be able to both speak and be seen by the board when participating virtually, telephonically, via Zoom. Individuals participating virtually that wish to make comments during the public participation will need to raise their hand by clicking the blue hand icon at the bottom of the Zoom window. Individuals participating by telephone that wish to make comments during the public participation will need to hit *9 on their telephone to raise their hand. The business administrator, board secretary will then mute the individuals one at a time in order that the hand was raised.
May I please have a roll call?
Yes, Mr. Cathcart.
Yes.
Mr. Cooney.
Yes.
Ms. Kraft.
Here.
Mr. Feitros. Mr. Gomes.
Here.
Ms. McNeil.
Here.
Ms. Rodriguez.
Yes.
Ms. Velez.
Yes.
Ms. Orth.
Here.
President Martinez.
Here. We have quorum. Good evening, everybody. We have no minutes to approve. The only correspondence from the public that we received was a letter to the board from Denise and Edwin Santiago regarding the soccer fields and the arrangements that Dr. V and the administration have made in order to accommodate and treat all of our sports on equal footing. I encourage the public to visit our soccer program as they have games down on the big field. And that was the only correspondence from the public. Let's move on to committee reports. Buildings and Grounds, Trustee Cooney.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Martinez. Ongoing facility repairs are currently underway as the business office reviews the current work order submission reports from each district building location. The business office has been reaching out to several vendors who we use, and Mr. Bisick has reported that these respective vendors have established a great relationship with Richfield Park Board of Education. A ROD grants update. The district did receive an email from the county stating that the final approved allotment of available ROD grant funds by approved project will be released shortly. The district was advised that we did not receive all of the ROD grants, that they were not all approved. An update on solution architectural projects. The Lincoln School HVAC, the project is completed at 95%. The phase now is completing the punch list items that were noted during the final walkthrough. High school commercial kitchen and science rooms, which I had a chance to see during back to school night, and they look fantastic. The project is completed at 95%. The phase now is completing the punch list item as well that were noted during the final walkthrough. The DOAs, which is the high school HVAC, upgrading the 5 RTUs, which is remote terminal unit. This project is strongly recommended to finish the high school academic wing. for heat and AC. The project will be slated for June 2024. This project will require additional funds from the available budget in the amount of $226,500, which is available in the school year 23-24 budget. An update on Kindergarten Landscaping has begun their weekly maintenance service, which started this past Saturday, and they finished up on Monday, and the grounds look very nice. Miscellaneous CUSAC. The district is currently doing the facility-related items that will be reviewed during the CUSAC walkthroughs in early spring. Meeting adjourned by 5:26. Those present were Dr. Vespignani, Mr. Bisig, myself, Dr. Martinez, and Ms. Trustee Vice President Orth. And our next meeting is scheduled for October 16th. That's it for B&G. Thank you.
Thank you. Amazing report, Mr. Cooney. Policy, Trustee Rodriguez.
Thank you. The policy committee met on September 12th. All committee members were in attendance. Dr. Vespignani and Mr. Bisig presented the revised use of facility policy, which is on tonight's agenda. Due to urgency, Dr. Vespignani recommendation is to vote on the resolutions after the first reading at this board meeting. Committee went into a lengthy discussion regarding the Class D rates, also the school sick leave law, and the need to revise the policy. Yeah.
Trustee Rodriguez, could you also give us an update on the homeschool connection?
Yes, thank you. So the homeschool connection, Mrs. Laura Woods, Dr. Mercedes Haynes, and Trustee Carol Velez promoted a night of literacy during the back to school night at Grant and Lincoln School. Tomorrow, the committee plans to attend Roosevelt School Open House, and the committee will meet this Monday, September 25th.
Thank you very much. Faculty and programs, Trustee Kraft.
Good evening, everybody. The Faculty and Programs Committee met on September 12th at 6 p.m. I'd like to shout out Trustee Gomes for taking over as I was unable to attend. Some of the things we discussed, they discussed the job descriptions of supervisory staff that are being revamped. There was a discussion on revising the district PDP and mentoring programs to make them more effective. Discussion was held on revised policy forms, in particular the use of the facilities policy, which was discussed at length. I believe we're having a reading of that policy this evening. We are being CUSAC this year, always fun times. The monitoring date will be on March 12th, 2024. Preschool update, 3 of the 4 classrooms are filled, and we're still working with providers to identify additional space. We were pleased to hear that several staff members, including our instructional math coach, attended Conquer Math training, and we look forward to seeing that work in our classrooms. G&T program was discussed at length, and the criteria for that program is currently being evaluated. Homeschool Connection Committee discussed the need for more events geared towards the middle school, high school parents. And we discussed the Social Justice Committee and where that work should begin this school year. And Trustee Gomes brought up the possibility of creating a CTE committee similar to what CPAC does. And that's it.
Thank you. Finance and Insurance, Trustee Gomes.
Thank you, sir. The Finance Committee met on Monday, September 18th. Present were Superintendent Dr. Vespignani, Interim BA Mr. Bisig, Board President Dr. Martinez, Board Vice President Orth, Trustee Cathcart, Trustee McNeil, and myself. Now that our Interim BA has had some time to settle into his role with the district, we commence a meeting with an update on the financial status of the district. We'll then continue the meeting by discussing the following important topics. Upcoming audits. The district still has to complete June and July reconciliation, so Mr. Bisig will be in a better position to provide information for the audit. After the June reconciliation, we will be able to request a list and start sending the auditors the information they need to conduct the audit. The district is also going to change our System 3000. The administration has decided to change our systems by adding payroll functions to System 3000. Currently, we're using ADP to process payroll, but by including payroll in System 3000, we will see an almost 50% cost savings in the future. I'm not going to get into CUSAC too much. We just discussed that we need to create a team and do a self-assessment by November 2023. We did, however, discuss the school year 2024-2025 budget calendar. Unlike how our budgets were done in the past, Mr. Bisig does not like to start the budget process late. Therefore, he would like to start school year 2024-2025 budget by October of 2023. Once the state announces the school aid, he can then include the numbers and have the budget done early. Thank you for that, Mr. Bisig. Finally, we discussed the ROD grants, which is being used to partially pay for the 5 rooftop HVAC units at the high school. We're still waiting for the final list of which ROD grants were approved and what projects will be funded. Any grants that were not approved, the funds assigned to them would then be returned to our reserves. Thank you.
Thank you, trustee Gomes. Personnel, trustee Orth.
Good evening. The Personnel Committee met at September 12th at 5 o'clock. Present were Dr. Vespignani, Dr. Martinez, myself, Jody Kraft, and trustee Cooney. We discussed the upcoming CUSAC evaluations here, the updated district PDP and mentoring plans. The state monitor approved appointments for the 9/20 board meeting, the open positions in the district, and the revised reporting lines. We also discussed the preschool instructional coach and interventionist referral specialist on tonight's agenda. The recruiting and hiring tabs on our website have been updated to be more prominent. And we've created a substitute rate to fill sub vacancies at the administrative assistant level. That's all.
Thank you, committee chairs, for these thorough reports. We will now move on to the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Dr. Martinez, and good evening, everyone here with us tonight and also tuning in from home. Pleased to share my superintendent's report. And first, wanted to welcome some new faces with us and welcome our student liaisons. We have Bree and Olivia. So great to see you again. I know we met last week in preparation. Welcome. And wanted to turn it over to both of you for your student liaison report.
Good evening. My name is Bree Cooney, and I'm the senior class president. And my name is Olivia Locarno, and I am the student government vice president. We are just 2 out of the 8 senior class officers this year in student government. We will be the student representatives at the board meetings this school year. And we are here to give you an update on some of the activities taking place at the junior senior high school. This past June, the Scarlet Walking Trail was officially opened. This was a huge undertaking on the part of the student government. We teamed up with the Board of Commissioners and the DPW to open this new facet of our community. We encourage everyone to take a walk on the MAP Mile Marker Trail. We are also planning a ribbon cutting ceremony this October to celebrate the Scarlet Trail. Our homecoming dance will take place on Saturday, September 30th at the Knights of Columbus. This event is open to all high schoolers, and as of Monday, September 18th, has become a sold-out event. We are currently in the process of electing the 7th and 9th grade class officers. Last but not least, we are working on a district-wide student government website. This website will be available to all and will be updated with events and essential information. We are so excited for this school year and all the fun and important events we have organized for our students. We thank you for trusting in us and look forward to being the voice for our student body. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Bree. Thank you, Olivia. Wonderful job. Again, great to have you here this evening. You are of course, welcome to stay for the duration, but understanding with, I imagine, your extracurricular commitments and homework, we can absolutely excuse you after the superintendent's report ends. And I just wanted to mention in meeting with both of you and the third student who will be on a rotating basis, something that we discussed that's very important to highlight is hearing from our student body in terms of what are the attributes that they seek in our staff members, our teaching candidates. And we heard from Vice President Orth in terms of our online application process and our employment tab. And within that platform, which is known as recruiting and hiring through Frontline, we have the capability of adjusting some of those questions. So what I had asked from the student representatives and their team as a whole is to begin to think through that. And some of my team members will be meeting with you shortly, as we had discussed, to learn about some of those attributes, and we'll be crafting some questions within our online application based upon the feedback that we receive from our student body in terms of what are the attributes. So the platform allows for a series of questions. Typically, districts leave those as the generic questions that come as part of that online platform. But what I like to do is create questions that are unique to Richfield Park and to learn from the voices of our student body. So I look forward to engaging with you and your classmates on that shortly. In terms of the opening of school on September 7th, it was great to see students and all of our staff back in the classrooms. And my tours of all the buildings, the energy was high despite the heat on the first day, but it was really great to see everyone back in the classrooms. We heard in our facilities report in terms of the grounds, a massive thank you to Mr. Bisig and his oversight of ensuring that the grounds and facilities on the outside, I mean, they just looked incredibly sharp in terms of the landscaping, and I thank you for your efforts in ensuring that. Wanted to thank our PTAs for all the positive signs and the balloons, and it really was pleasant in terms of welcoming our staff and students back. So I thank you for your efforts in supporting us to do so. So far, we have had 3 out of our 4 back to school nights. Myself and our assistant superintendent, who I'll introduce shortly, we're pleased to attend. We have our final one tomorrow evening at Roosevelt. But I appreciate our staff members opening their classrooms and families coming on out to engage and ask questions in terms of what to expect this year from the teachers and from the principals. As mentioned in committee reports, this is a CUSAC year. The county office has been providing excellent support. Mr. Isaac and I attended an all-day training on August 30th. Yesterday, we attended a bit of an office hours online with the county office, who provided some additional support. And as noted, our official day of monitoring will be on Tuesday, March 12th. We're currently in the process of forming a committee as required to create the self-assessment with some required documents requiring board approval in the near future. As mentioned from our home and school connection, we're excited to be planning our event on Thursday, November 2nd. So more information on that. We hope to see families come out. And just a bit of news across the schools. In our K-6 schools, it was great to see the grant recess area updated with various interactive designs, such as basketball court lines, sensory path, hopscotch, a world map. At Roosevelt, the center blacktop is now student-centered with activities for learning and active participation. At Lincoln Elementary, as noted, the HVAC is about 95% complete. And pleased to share that all of our schools applied for and have received a free life vac, which is a rescue suction device. And again, this is at the K-6 level. So great to partake in that program to receive this free device. Also in the K-6 level, the digital signs in front of the schools are in progress for installation. And at our junior senior high school, sharing of good news in terms of a recent ranking. I typically take rankings with a grain of salt. Going back to my coaching days, there'd be some times where we would be nationally ranked, and then in the state rankings ranked below teams that we were ranked ahead of from the national perspective. So, I taking into consideration rankings have different metrics and different feedback and options. Always nice to be recognized, and I'm pleased to share that our junior senior high school achieved status as the U.S. News and World Report best high school ranking in the top 40% of high schools nationwide. So congratulations to our administration staff, the junior senior high school for part to attain that ranking. Also at the junior senior high school, our new STEM lab and culinary lab are operational and are being enjoyed by staff and students alike. And in addition, we have 3 more courses offered that have been approved by dual enrollment credits through Fairleigh Dickinson University, being financial algebra, journalism, creative writing, and bringing the total to 19. A few important items. Chief school administrators must annually report to the District Board of Education at a public meeting by no later than September 30th on high school students awarded or denied diplomas. The number of students last year graduated was 224 of 225, with 1 being denied to not completing course requirements with the option through summer school. In terms of HIB cases, there are no HIB cases to report. And lastly, I am very pleased to introduce our new Assistant Superintendent of Schools, Ms. Carmela Triglia, who will be presenting some student data for the group this evening. Nothing like starting employment and within the first 20 days being asked to present a comprehensive data presentation to your new employer and to the community. But I'm confident and I know you're going to do a great job. So thank you for joining, and we look forward to the presentation.
Thank you for the warm welcome. It has been a fabulous start. Everyone is super helpful. I just want to say thank you to Ms. Rodriguez and Ms. Cavins for being here tonight, supporting us. So tonight I'm going to be presenting NJGPA and the access, starting with NJGPA. The NJGPA stands for the New Jersey Graduation Proficiency Assessment. Juniors are the ones who take the students in grade 11. In ELA, they are being assessed on 10th grade ELA standards. In math, they're being assessed on Algebra 1 and geometry. Students who do not pass the New Jersey graduation requirement are able to enter 3 different pathways to meet the graduation requirement. First is they can retake the assessment. If that is not something that they're able to do in passing that, they then can be meeting those requirements through a designated cut score that's approved by the NJDOE. And lastly, if that is not an option, they can do the portfolio appeal. The proficiency levels that are measured are simply graduation ready or not yet graduation ready. And the overall cut score ranges from 650 to 850. It's a scaled score. Any student who performed 725 or above is deemed graduation ready. So on this slide, you'll see we have a district comparison to the state comparison as far as graduation readiness. In language arts, we are right there with the state at 78%. In mathematics, we are at 39%, or the state is at 55%. On this slide, you're going to see a comparison between the 2022 and the 2023 spring assessment data. Feedback. Here, I just want to note that this is year 2 of the NJGPA. In spring of 2022, it was released as a field test. Generally, when there's a field test in a state level assessment, they're vetting the questions, they're figuring out what questions work, what questions don't work, what data they want to look for, and then they make adjustments. And so in this past spring, the 2023 year, it was the first time that the scores were being used as a measurement for graduation readiness. So here you can see in language arts, we were at 37.8% in the spring of 2022 school year. This past spring, we raised that to 78%, and we saw some growth as well in mathematics. On this slide, you're going to see a comparison in ELI between the spring 22 data and the state and the spring 23 data and the state. Recognizing again that the 22 data was a field test, we were right in line in ELI, which is exciting to see. It means we're doing some things right there. So kudos to the teachers and the administration. And in mathematics, in the spring of 22, we were, we're almost in line with the state, but as you can see, there is an overall need to address math instruction and math standards and things of that sort. And so we'll dig into a little bit of that in the next few slides. As part of the mandate, we are mandated to report out on student subgroups, demographics. So here what you're looking at is a comparison of your subgroups in the spring of 23 and how they performed as far as graduation ready. So the numbers you're seeing here are showing who in these subgroups, the percentages that were deemed graduation ready by the NJGPA. So I'll just leave this up a second while you look. Just so in case there's some acronyms on there that you're not sure about, IEP are students with the individual education program individualized for themselves, special needs, and multilingual is what we formerly knew as English language learners. Now they're referred to as multilingual learners. On the next slide, you're looking at the same data, the demographics, but for mathematics. And just so you know, this will be posted on the district website. So if you do want to refer back to it, you can. On this slide, looking at demographics from the 22 to the 23. Again, knowing that the spring 22 was a field test. It was the first time the students were seeing this type of assessment, especially since the pre-COVID world. You know, they were just getting their feedback into standardized testing. So you can see some major growth between the 2 years in ELA. Again, this slide is now for math. You're comparing the spring 22 to the spring 23 within the district. So with this data and understanding that I am on day 21 of being in Richfield Park, I did communicate with the building principal and the content supervisors. And here they had given us some insight on what they're currently doing. And I can tell you that Dr. Vespignani and myself have been really working towards prioritizing needs, really getting to know the district. You know, the first few weeks, like anything, is just asking those questions, figuring out the needs, prioritizing, streamlining from the district level. But at the high school level, they are continuing to use resources to develop reading and writing. We're looking to streamline the curriculum, and things like that means creating common assessments between the content areas, updating the novels that really foster student engagement and student interest and that are inclusive and diverse, engaging in professional learning communities and what that really looks like, looking at data, determining what's working, what's not working. We're looking at the classroom data versus the school data versus the district's data. What adjustments do we have to make? Richfield Park uses Linkit benchmark assessments. Those are closely aligned to the NJSLS standards. So that is a helpful resource in looking at standards mastery. We can see where our students are performing really well, where they might need some support that we're focusing on as well. Nonfiction text is always a little bit more complex. So ensuring that students are really working within those materials to develop those skills. And as you all know, in any case with a strong foundation, so the K-6 world, as we build that foundation, you will see it's a continuum. And so that is part of the work. And we'll talk more about that at the next presentation for the NJI, but just know that that is also a primary focus for us as well. From math, it's the same idea. We're going to review curriculum, look at the unit goals, create common assessments, engage in those PLC conversations. Part of what Ms. Cavens is looking to do is in the period, really focusing on those foundational skills with the teachers, building, you know, the basic concepts. So as they're dealing with the complex math content in the other time frame, then they're really going back to the basics and individualizing that instruction for students. And we have a very strong K-6 math coach who's really focusing in on building those strong mathematical practices and keeping students engaged in conceptual thinking and not just computation and recall. In addition to that, I just wanted to state it's really important to note that this is a snapshot, a moment in time, just like any assessment. It's one piece of data that we utilize, but educators know that we should be looking at multiple criteria because that really helps paint a picture. So although NJGPA and NJSLA are really valid in the data they give us, it's not the end all. We use our benchmark assessments, we use our unit assessments, we use discipline data, we use attendance data, because that really helps us paint a picture. And so now the work is putting it all together and figuring, you know, what sorts we need to support the whole child, not pieces and not just one or two assessments, but the whole picture. We also have to report out on our access for L's. So this is a long tongue twisting acronym. That's what it stands for when you hear access for L's. So just so you know, any student who's identified as a multilingual learner or a English language as referred to in this is eligible for English as second language services. That is provided by a certified ESL teacher, and it's K-12. Students are identified. The first process in identifying a student is through the home language survey. So as families come to register in the district, they have to fill in a home survey language. And from there, the supervisor and the ESL teachers deem the next steps, and they do a screener and things of that sort, and then the eligibility is determined. Parents do have the right to refuse services for their students. If a parent chooses to refuse services, the student still has to participate in taking classes until they hit a proficiency level. Access for all scores are determined to exit the program, so that's the pieces that we might use. It's also determined, the access gives you urgency range, and with that urgency range in the next slide, you'll see means what students are able to do with where they are with their language proficiencies. So you can make an informed decision on what group you're putting them in and what your primary focuses are in the 4 domains: speaking, reading, writing, and listening. And also it's to monitor that have made proficiency. And just as I mentioned, are assessed in the speaking, reading, writing, and listening components. The levels range 1 to a 6. Students must achieve, that is the first step to determine exiting of the program. They must achieve 4.5. Anything below that, they can exit the program. Once they've hit that 5, as I said before, it's important to look at multiple criteria. You can't just make a decision with data. We look at other in-house benchmark assessments, teacher recommendations, and report cards to determine, okay, this student is ready to be exited. Any student who exits the ESL program has to be monitored for 2 years to just that they are progressing along the way that they need to. And if at any point the child might need more supports, we might put them in and things of that sort. So it helps as well. I'm not going to read this slide to you, but leave it up for a couple seconds. This is just letting you know what a student based on these levels could do as far as language acquisition and understanding of the language. So you'll see like a level 2 needs a lot of visual and graphic support, where a level 3 can use social and academic language on a day-to-day basis. So the structure of the program in Ridgefields Park is students are assessed when they're enrolled. Like we said, the home language survey is what really starts that off. From there, phone calls might be made for clarification, and the questions are asked. One student is identified, a K6 world students about 40 to 80 minutes of pull out ESL instruction grouped according to their grade. In some instances, you can do multi-grades, you can cluster 3 through 5, 6, 8, depending on how they are with their language proficiency and if it matches. Students work with a variety of content and language-based materials. In the students, 84 minutes of high intensity. So that's like a double block of English services, the ESL program. And if they are higher in their proficiency range, ESL4, it might be 42 minutes rather than the 84. And students remain streamed for 10 area classes. And the ESL teachers do provide strategies, applications, resources that the gen teacher utilize to help support the multilingual learners in the classroom. This chart here, what you're looking at, you're going to read it going across. So kindergarten, you'll read 16 students. Of the 16 students, 40% more in a level 1, 6% more in a level 2, 38% more in a 3, 15 in 4. 5 and 6 are the bridging and reaching. So what I'd like you to know is that most of our students are in that developing range. So that's exciting to see. We have, a lot of level 1s and a lot of level 2s, but we're in that developing stage. And so, it does take 2 to 3 years to learn the language efficiency. And I can leave this up and I'll get into the next slide. And it'll show how many students have entered just recently, how many learning have and that sort. So I'll just leave this up for another 10 or so seconds. notice that grades 4 and 5 are clustered and grades 6 through 8 are clustered. The numbers were under 10 for each grade level individually. We cannot report out anything under 10, but with the access scores, you can cluster the grade levels, and so that's why you're seeing it that way. So in grades 4 through 5, there was a total of 15 valid scores. In grades 6 through 8, there was a total of 22, and that's why it's that. At the top of this, you'll notice that 157 multilingual learners who were assessed, some of which could have been refusals, and some of which, and most of which are receiving ESL services. This next slide, you're looking at comparison of the overall students who took the access. So for the 21-22 school year, we had 132 students participate in the access testing. Of that, you'll see 35% are in the developing, and in the 22-23 school year, we have about 61 students in the developing range out of 155 students that participated. So in just 1 year's time, we went from 130 students to 155. With enrollment, new students entering the district, you see that that was a pretty large increase from 1 year to the next. And here are just some quick data points. In spring 22, you had 133 multilinguals. Multilingual learners, 21 were new to the district, 5 were refusals, and 16 hit that 4.5 proficiency level. In this past data window, the spring 23, we had 157, 24 were new to the district, 9 were refusals, and 10 exited the program. Next steps as far as helping and assisting our multilingual learners. We're going to continue with, Ms. Rodriguez has the ESL Parent Advisory Committee, which is super important. That homeschool connection is really important in supporting learners. We're going to implement an extended day and summer ESL program. Teaching the gen ed teachers, the sheltered and restricted instruction is really imperative because it really gives them those resources and the strategies to assist in helping our multilingual learners learn language acquisition. This summer, thanks to the efforts of Ms. Rodriguez and the administration, 30 teachers invited back to the district to receive high intense sheltered instruction, English instruction. So getting to hear. And that is the end of my presentation.
Thank you, Ms. Triglia. And again, really nice of bringing together this information in a very short amount of time. We appreciate your efforts in doing so, and also wanted to just thank Ms. Cavins and Ms. Rodriguez for not only joining us this evening, but for your contributions this week in organizing this data and providing a good amount of the information. So we thank you for that. Before I turn it over to Dr. Martinez in terms of any questions, just wanted to pause and again thank our student liaisons and give an opportunity if you had any comments on the presentation. But if not, thank you for coming this evening. You're welcome to stay, but totally understand, we can excuse you at this time.
Thank you for having us.
All right, so our goal as an administration is to provide the board with these presentations with more advanced notice than was given this evening, understanding that this is the first time that you're reviewing this, just due to the timing and the requirement from the state to present this, and having Ms. Triglia new to the position to oversee the development. I hope it's understood that, again, our goal is to be able to provide this to you through committee work in advance so you can start to generate questions, not on the spot. We will be presenting in October, most likely, our NJ SLA data and DLM data. So again, we're hopeful to be able to provide that to the board with more advanced notice. So Dr. Martinez, questions or concerns from the board?
Yeah, I'm sure we have a couple of questions. I guess I'll start with mine. And these are just, I guess, logistical questions. Who makes the call to clarify ESL or ELL placement when it's not clear from the application?
So Ms. Rodriguez will do it in the high school level, and the K-6 elementary teachers will do it in their buildings.
My second question is there a staffing level that's required staffing level of the number of ESL teachers that's required based on our ESL or ELL population?
As far as I know, there is no ratio student to teacher. Your groups can be, it's always best to keep your groups small in a pull-out setting, but there is no magic number.
So you might not know this question yet, this answer yet, but are we considered to be fully staffed in terms of the number of ESL teachers that we need, or is that not a thing that happens?
I think something that we, as a new administration, we would absolutely want to evaluate in collaboration with the supervisory team and staff, assistant staff members.
And my last question is just curiosity. What are the reasons given by parents for parental refusal into the program?
I'm not sure in this district, but in the past, it might just be that the language that they speak at home, they're comfortable in speaking in their native language, but don't feel that their children need the support because they might be native in their language, in the English language as well.
Thank you. And I might just ask Ms. Rodriguez, who again has joined us this evening on the event that, Ms. Triglia and I can't field the question, being new to the district, we'd be happy to have your input as supervisor of the program. And if there's anything that Dr. Martinez had asked that has been addressed, we'd welcome that input.
Good evening, everyone. Dr. Martinez, to answer your question, each student's refusal is an individual case, but in general, it's that the parents feel that their children already are fluent in the English language. We have had some cases where some students have a lower reading level and their parents want to focus more on maybe a BSI or an LLI. Different, like I said, every case is different, but our refusals haven't been that high. In general, that's what it is. And as far as if we are fully staffed, considering that our numbers keep growing, that's a conversation to be had. I think we're going to need some new teachers.
Thank you for that.
How many teachers, how many ESL teachers are in each elementary school?
Each elementary school has one. And so one per school. And right now this year at the high school, we have 3.
Thank you.
Anything else?
I think we just had the conversation then.
Uh,
Any other questions from the board?
I just have one question. I had many, but in the next step, you already addressed my questions. But if you stated that it takes about 2 to 3 years for students to reach language proficiency. That's what I understood. So what happens, or like what supports or next steps are given for those students who are in the program for more than 2 to 3 years? That's not really.
In our past experience, when we begin to notice, in my previous district, so I don't know what happens here, but I can speak to that, at overseeing the ESL department, we had a rule of any student who was at a 2.5 proficiency shouldn't receive any additional supports, because at this point we know it's language that they're trying to develop. When a student hits a 0.5 proficiency level and we know the language is better and they're able to understand academic and social vocabulary, that's when we'll bring in basic skills supports, and in the classroom really focusing in on that differentiation. So students who might be in the program for longer than that 3-year window, I mean, it's different for every student and everyone progresses at different rates, but that's where we would look at those additional supports, basic skills intervention, individualized lessons within the classroom where the teacher's looking at the data, and really when they're doing that one-on-one conferencing or small group instruction, focusing in on those skills that might be lacking.
I have 2 questions. Great job with your report, by the way, in such short notice. I have 2 questions. I guess, has the district considered, from an ESL standpoint, rather than pulling kids out of the classroom, pushing into the classroom to provide support in the classroom to not limit their exposure to conversations with peers and part of the whole group instruction in the gen ed classroom so that they're not missing instruction? Has that been considered? That's my first question. And my second question is that the numbers have been increasing and seem to be continuously increasing. Has there been thought of providing training for all teachers who may have these students in their classrooms when they're not being provided support with ESL, training so that they understand how to differentiate instruction for those students who are multi-language speakers?
As far as, sorry, As far as pulling out goes right now, because we just brought up the topic, hopefully we'll be hiring some people in the future and we'll have the opportunity to be able to support our students that way. Right now, because we are a bilingual, we have a bilingual waiver and our bilingual waiver is in Spanish. And due to that, we have to serve our students for 84 minutes. So that means essentially our students in the elementary level get pulled from two times a day in order to fulfill our bilingual waiver. So hopefully we'll get some more staff on board and we'll be able to provide a service like that in the future. As far as training our teachers, Mrs. Kraft, I'm happy to report that I've been at this position now, this is my 4th year, but I started my initiative to train our teachers. And at this point, within 3 years, I have 96 teachers that are now fully trained in sheltered English instruction. And my goal is to continue that until we all are. You're welcome. Anyone else?
Can I ask what you mean by a bilingual waiver? I'm not certain what that means.
So it's okay. In any district, if you have more than 20 students that speak a foreign language, you have to provide a bilingual education. We don't have the staff to do that, nor does it lead. I think the distance between the schools, it's kind of impossible for us. So what we do is, it's a state regulation. We have to file for a bilingual waiver, and we have to only do it for Spanish at the moment. So we have clearly more than 20 students that speak Spanish.
I'm just going to add to that. So some of the reasons, as Ms. Rodriguez mentioned, is grade span. So for example, you might have 10 students who speak Spanish in the K-1-2, and then another 10 in the, and when you have grade span that large, it's hard to offer that bilingual course. And so high intensity is one of the options that you can offer to not have to do the bilingual course.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you for your help and thank you for
Thank
the
you.
presentation.
Thank you very much for the presentation. It was excellent.
Yes, thank you. That concludes the superintendent's report. Thank you, Dr. Martinez.
Before we go on to the state monitors, I just wanted to hit rewind because we did receive another correspondence from the public. I apologize to Ms. Schmidt, who actually raised the issue of the life facts. Thank you very much for raising that issue. And we will proceed to the state monitors report. You're muted, Mr. Egan.
Okay.
There you go. I got you.
Very good. I'll just be quick. Two things. I reviewed the entire agenda and support all the resolutions that are being presented. I've been working very closely with the superintendent and the business administrator, and we form a good team to move forward. The only other thing I wanted to mention is that we're in September. We're getting very close to preparing and doing the work to prepare the budget for next year. And one of the things I talked with the superintendent and the BA. That field house at the high school has to be redone. I don't have all the details for it yet, but that's going to be one of my goals. And I've talked with the superintendent and the BA with this, and they're in agreement. We just have to move forward with that. With respect to many of the other projects that are due and planned for next year, that's one, and there's several projects, other projects within the school district. So ends my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Egan. I would like to request a motion to amend the order of the meeting for the purpose of reading into the record all new business items. I think there's only 2 of them. therefore allowing the public time to comment on these new items. May I
I'll
have that
make that
motion?
motion.
Second.
Have a roll call?
Ms. Cathcart,
Yes.
Mr. Cooney,
Yes.
Ms. Kraft,
Yes.
Mr. Phytros,
Yes.
Mr. Gomes,
Yes.
Ms. McNeil,
Yes.
Ms. Rodriguez,
Yes.
Ms. Velez,
Yes.
Ms. Orth,
Yes.
President Martinez.
Yes. If you could just read them into the record.
Yes. Under new business, category 16, new business and faculty and program, it's subject 16.01. It's called a sidebar agreement. This type is called action consent. Resolve, the Board of Education, on the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, approves a sidebar agreement to the collective negotiation agreement between the Ridgefield Park Board of Education and the Ridgefield Park Association commencing 1 July 2021 and ending June 30th, 2026, allowing for a stipend for the HIB coordinator, that's the anti-bullying coordinator, and the district head nurse. Under new business, category 17, under personnel, it's 17.01, employment amended. It's also type action consent. Resolve, the Board of Education, on the recommendation of Superintendent of Schools, amends P 13.03-71923 to read. Resolve, the Board of Education, on the recommendation of Superintendent of Schools, approves the appointment of Ms. Julia McIver to the position of speech language pathologist in the Ridgefield Park Public School District for the 23-24 school year. Ms. McIver will be placed on step 1, masters plus 20, and receive a salary of $75,411 effective September 1, 2023 through June 30th, 2024. The last item under new business is, again, category 17, personnel, 17.02, employment, Spanish teacher. Type is action is consent. Resolve, the Board of Education, on the recommendation of Superintendent of Schools, with prior approval by the fiscal monitor, approves the appointment of Miss Mazzelli, if I say it right, Bezay, to the position of Spanish teacher in Ridgefield Park Public School District for 23-24 school year. Ms. Baez will be placed on step 14, bachelor's, and receive a salary of $76,421 prorated effective October 27, 2023 or sooner if released from her current employer, and completion of the required documents through June 30th, 2024.
Thank you, Mr. Bisick. And I know that's a little bit cumbersome to read them into the record, and Dr. Vispignani is working on a way for this to be a little smoother, for us to be able to give the public time to respond or make comments on these items while reading them into the record. So thank you. We will now listen to citizens' comments on agenda. Trustee Rodriguez, if you could please read the rules.
For tonight's meeting, there will be 2 public comment sessions, one on agenda and one off agenda items. There is a sign-up sheet on the podium. We'll call your name in the order that you signed in. Each member of the public will have 5 minutes to speak during each comment period. Time cannot be transferred to other individuals. The public comment period will be 1 hour for on-agenda items and 1 hour for non-agenda items. The board will now entertain public comment. Please remember to state your name, Ridgefield Park mailing address, and to keep your comments brief to allow sufficient time for other members of the public to speak if they wish. Thank you for your cooperation and support.
Thank you, Trustee Rodriguez. Ms. DeSantis?
Susan DeSantis, 15 Homestead Place.
Why is the Spanish teacher step 14? We're not answering again.
Not in real time. We're being disciplined.
Okay, 907. The supervisor of school safety, security and programs. When you try to access that PDF, it's error in accessing. You can't access it. 908, page 3, the first sentence under terms states 10 months at WOEA. I assume that's West Orange and not RPEA in the job description.
Number was that again? Could you repeat it?
Hmm?
Where in the
Third,
document?
page 3,
Third
under
page?
terms, the first sentence,
Okay.
10 months WOEA, not RPEA. 1006, the settlement agreement with the Office of Administrative Law. I would imagine that that's public, so I would like to know what it is and what the settlement is. 1108, the maintenance agreement. Why are we spending $18,000 to have somebody cut the lawn when the custodians always cut the lawn? Didn't cost us $18,000 for 3 months for the custodians to cut the lawn, and the town takes care of the fields. 1304, teacher salaries. Where are the previous salaries? This is a problem if you don't have the previous salaries next to the current salaries. And this should be the new salaries since, with the increases over the years since the contract has been settled and goes back. If you don't have them, there's no way you can check to make sure that they're correct. And this had become a huge problem under Dr. Richardson, and that's how increases got slipped through without anybody knowing it.
To clarify, you're worried about the accuracy of the calculations? Just to clarify, you're worried about the accuracy of the calculations? Just to clarify, you're worried about the accuracy of the calculations on salary?
Well, you can't check the clarifications as a board member or as a community member
Okay,
to make sure that those calculations are correct.
okay, thank you.
And also, all the teachers' numbers are on this sheet. And that's really unacceptable, because now everybody that has a copy of this knows what staff number goes with the name. And that does not, they're there. I have a copy of it. I left it home, but I have a copy of it. That's not acceptable, because then you're invading their privacy. And 1107. Why would we be entering into a contract with Littleberry when they have hired the person that was terminated from here, running our busing program with all the violations and laws and statutes that were broken, and the conditions that those buses were kept, our buses were kept in, endangering anybody that got on those buses. And we're going to enter into an agreement with him or them when he's running their busing. I just really don't think that that's acceptable. That's it for now.
Thank you, Mr. Santos. Do we have anybody to elevate?
Hi,
Hi, Ms. Gottlieb.
hi, can you
Give
hear me?
your address? Yes, we can hear you.
Four
Can you give your
sixty-four
address?
A Liberty Street, apartment 102, Little Ferry. I have two questions. Since we don't answer them now in the meetings, I had the same question as Ms. DeSantis about the legal matter. And the second comment I have is I had a very hard time, sort of relates to the agenda, but I couldn't click on any of the links this month. And I had to do a ton of digging around to find the Zoom link. It's buried. So can you possibly look at that for next month? I could not get any of the attachments to open. I don't know what I was doing wrong. And I'm a computer person. And that's all I have to say about on agenda.
Thank you, Ms. Gottlieb. We'll look into that.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's good you're feeling your computer version. Yeah.
Do we have anybody else to elevate? Okay, we have no one else to elevate. Dr. V, would you like to answer some of those?
Yes, and thank you, Mr. Santos and Ms. Gottlieb, for your questions, in particular in terms of some, clerical items that we clearly need to clear up. I always do a debriefing with my team the day after the agenda. We'll certainly look into, some of those areas that you've noted. So we appreciate you sharing that. Some of these we'll do a little fact finding on and certainly follow up as we've been doing with folks who have come out and ask questions. It's part of my debriefing with my team, but I can answer on the spot in terms of the Spanish teacher and the step, if I understood the question correctly, in terms of placement on the RPEA guide. It's based upon experience that those individuals bring to the table. Thank you.
Thank you very much. David, would you like to comment on the settlement?
I think there were two questions regarding resolution 11.06. So that deals with the residency matter. I can't go into detail because it's a student issue and a privacy concern. What I can say is it's a matter that was resolved, residency before a hearing and no cost to the district.
Thank you, David. Okay, so I guess I'll close the public session. We will move to our agenda items. Trustee Kraft, can you please move faculty and programs, including 1601?
Sure, I make a motion to move FP 901 to FP 910 and FP 1601.
Second. Do we have any questions on those items? Can I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Cathcart,
Yes.
Mr. Cooney,
Yes.
Ms. Kraft,
Yes.
Mr. Phytros,
Yes.
Mr. Gomes,
Yes.
Ms. McNeil,
Yes.
Ms. Rodriguez,
Yes.
Ms. Velez,
Yes.
Ms. Orth,
Yes.
President Martinez.
Yes. Resolution passes. Trustee Cooney, can you please move buildings and grounds?
Sure. Buildings and Grounds, Resolution 10.01. I so move.
Second.
Do we have any questions or comments from the board?
I do have one question on this. Is the contractor getting all of the permits that are required for this work? Or is that something that the district office is doing?
That'll go through the contract once the contract's awarded.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Can I please have a roll call?
Mr. Cathcart,
Yes.
Mr. Cooney,
Yes.
Ms. Kraft,
Yes.
Mr. Phytros,
Yes.
Mr. Gomes,
Yes.
Ms. McNeil,
Yes.
Ms. Rodriguez,
Yes.
Ms. Velez,
Yes.
Ms. Orth,
Yes.
President Martinez.
Yes. Trustee Gomes, can you please move finance and insurance?
Yes, I move FI 1101 to 1117.
I'll second.
Craft beer to it. Any questions or comments from the board?
I just have one comment on 1108. I just wanted to say how noticeably better the schools looked for the opening of schools, and that it was nice to finally have some pride in the district, in the appearance of the district as well. So thank you.
I agree with that. Thank you.
In addition, not only the schools, but also Central Ave, Special Services Building, and also the board office. Thank you.
And I'll take this opportunity to thank both of you, Mr. Paisek and Dr. Vespignani, and the rest of the administration. You know, having come from inner city where there was no grass and there was no lawns, you don't notice certain things, and you don't notice that we've been mowing weeds for a long, long time. And if they can grow grass in different Bergen County districts, we can grow grass here and take care of the landscaping. There's no reason why we can't. So I appreciate fresh eyes that you guys have brought to the district and the efforts that you guys have made to make everything that we have here. We have old buildings, but there's no reason for them to look poorly. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Can I have a roll call?
Mr. Cathcart,
I'll be an abstention on 1101 and yes on all others.
noted. Mr. Cooney,
Yes.
Ms. Kraft,
Yes.
Mr. Phytros, Mr. Gomes,
Yes,
Ms. McNeil,
Yes.
Ms. Rodriguez,
Yes.
Ms. Velez, sorry, Ms. Velez,
Yes.
Ms. Orth,
Yes.
President Martinez.
Yes. Resolution passes. Trustee Velez, can you move consent agenda 1201?
I so move 1201.
Second.
Do we have any questions or comments from the board on 1201 use of facilities? Can I have a roll call?
Mr. Cathcart,
Yes.
Mr. Cooney,
Yes.
Ms. Kraft,
Yes.
Mr. Phytros, Mr. Gomes,
yes,
Ms. McNeil,
Yes.
Ms. Rodriguez,
Yes.
Ms. Velez,
Yes.
Ms. Orth,
Yes.
President Martinez.
Yes. Resolution passes. Trustee Orth, can you please move personnel, including 1701 and 1702?
I so move 1301 to 1316 and 1701 and 1702.
I'll second it.
Do we have any questions or comments on personnel? Seeing none, can I have a roll call?
Mr. Cathcart,
Yes.
Mr. Cooney,
Yes.
Ms. Kraft,
Yes.
Mr. Phytros, Mr. Gomes,
yes,
Ms. McNeil,
Yes.
Ms. Rodriguez,
Yes.
Ms. Velez,
Yes.
Ms. Orth,
Yes.
President Martinez.
Yes. The resolution passes. We will now listen to citizens' comments off agenda. Ms. DeSantis?
Looks like it's going to be me tonight.
Welcome.
I asked at the last meeting, the results and the course of the investigation by Mr. Egan about what he publicly stated was about the BA that didn't come here. You also didn't answer the questions I asked. Why don't you know what what rod grants have been approved and which haven't? I don't know about what happened under Dr. Haynes, but the budget has always begun in October at the school level and works its way up into what the board finally gets. I've said this before. The graduation requirements used to be different. They were higher. And Eric Koenig reduced them based on new students that transfer in and how they sometimes can't possibly meet those requirements. And again, I would like to say, I would like to go back and see the old requirements, which were higher. And students that transfer in and don't possibly have enough time in the school to meet those requirements, the board grants them a waiver, or the superintendent does. Again, the field house repairs, we don't own the building. How legal is it for us to put money into something that we don't own? Also, it's funny.
We're processing your questions.
Hmm?
We're processing your questions. You're asking questions.
And I'll go back to 1107. After your own transportation audit and the results of that audit, for this board to approve that resolution, I think is really kind of disgraceful. And that's it.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. DeSantis.
Good evening, everyone, at DeSantis 15 Homestead Place. Well, since Mr. Cooney answered every question I had about the projects, good job. That's when I signed up, that's already gone. And Susan just asked about the RIDE grants as to whether or not, why the ones that were not approved and why. That got taken care of. So Dr. Vespiani, first, thank you for getting back to me personally on the questions I had. And appreciate whenever you can answer questions in public at the time. And I'm sure we'll get there. I do have concerns. In it can happen, accidents happen, but it is very important for the board and the employee to not use that employee number. Because you end up always every year with some maternity leaves for sickness. Sometimes somebody's in rehab for something, or they're on administrative leave. And once you give those numbers out with a name, people can track that number to any employee. So in keeping the employees good and keeping the board safe, I would think that just be careful about that. Welcome to our new assistant superintendent. We haven't met yet, but nice to meet you. And I would have to agree too about the busing. I would think that if there was somebody else directing it, we should consider it. It's already been voted on, but I think it's hard to take a stand on something when, no, you can't work here anymore, but we'll enter into a contract where you're running the show. So those are just my thoughts, and thank you for listening.
Thank you, Mr. DeSantis. Do we have anyone to elevate?
Hi. Hi, Leslie Gottlieb, 464A Liberty Street, apartment 102, Little Ferry.
Good evening, Ms. Gottlieb.
Yeah, I'm under the weather tonight, so I'm zooming in tonight. And again, I wanted to just comment on a couple of things related to the school website. I had to dig around to find the link. It used to be a bit more prominent to find the Zoom. It used to be right where the agendas are. And number two, I was looking at the emails trying to reach somebody to let them know. And we still have some old names in there. We still have the old BA, old assistant BA. I couldn't find a way to link to the superintendent. So you might want to do a little work on the email addresses. And that's all I have to say. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Gottlieb. Anyone else to elevate? I guess it's really nice outside. I'm sorry? Good evening, Ms. Rafferty.
Good evening. Ingrid Raftery, 58 Euclid Avenue. I have one question as a parent. Last year and the year before, I always was on Google Classroom. This year, we send out emails to the teachers, and I have to say everybody pretty much responded. But for some reason, we're still not on Google Classroom as a parent. Was there any changes made? Or is it just not up running yet properly?
Thank you. We're writing down your question. Any other questions?
That's pretty much it. I mean, academically, I'm hoping that the scores improve. And that's why personally, for me as a parent, it's important to know what my granddaughter does in school, because she's in 11th grade and I would like to make sure she's college ready. And, so it's important to me that I can see what's going on besides Genesis. The school year started out great so far, and basically that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. Anyone else to elevate? I guess we'll try to knock out some of these questions that were asked. I am curious about the ROD grants. If you could just clarify why we don't know specifically. I know that we do have some news.
Surrounding the ROD grants, the DOE has not officially announced which ROD grants were approved and which ones weren't. So until we get that official notice from the DOE, we can't comment on the ROD grants because none of us know yet.
Could you also clarify, I think there's a misconception about the transportation agreements?
On the board resolution, the transportation agreements with Little Ferry are picking up Little Ferry students based on an agreement with Little Ferry because they fell short with bus requirements when they went on their own. So we picked up some of the students to support their students on our buses that we control.
Thank you. And can I follow up on this question? Graduation requirements are state requirements, right? They're not locally determined. Am I correct, or?
I believe that's correct.
Thank you. Any other? We're good? Okay. All right.
Can I just comment about the budget process? It may have been that in the past, the budget was done earlier with the school districts. I think that what we're talking to this time is that Mr. Visick has indicated to the board that he wants board to be involved very early on so that we're not surprised by the end result of the budget process. So he's trying to involve us a little bit more in that process.
Thank you for that clarification. And can I have a motion to close the meeting?
I'll make a motion that we close the meeting.
I'll
Second.
second.
I guess all in favor. Do we need a roll call? Roll call for the last one? Okay, have a good evening, everybody.